There's others, so there wasn't room for all of them. But in red, I highlighted the Chagrin, Ohio Shale group, the Marcellus Shale, which really isn't much of a factor in Ohio. It pretty much, as you head from Pennsylvania and Ohio, it thins out to nothing. And then the Utica Shale. And the reason why I've included them in here is that the Utica, particularly, is the source for the oil and gas that you find in these other formations. Now, the Berea sandstone probably got out of the Ohio Chagrin Shale. Coal bed methane produces it all on itself, but the Clinton sandstone, which I think everybody's heard of at one point or another, that's the major producer in this part of the state. The oil and gas within the Clinton sandstone was derived from the Utica Shale. This map right here just gives you an idea what the Utica is under Ohio, at least how thick it is. And without getting into a lot of detail, up here in Ashtabula County, northern Trumbull County, it's about 300 feet thick. And then as you move down in our direction, it gets around 250 feet thick, thins out to 200, eventually to nothing in the bottom of the state, and then it thins out to nothing in this part of the state, and that's because the rocks are exposed at the surface. A map should appear here any moment. There it is. No? There we go. A lot of people wonder just how deep is this formation? Is it deeper than the Marcellus? Is it deeper than the Clinton? And the answer to both those questions is yes, it is. Right where we are, it would, if you were to drill a hole right here, well, we wouldn't do it in the park, but if you were, you could go right down to 7,200 feet, and that's about where you find the Utica Shale. So it's a fairly deep formation. This will become a familiar sight as things progress. It's estimated that by the end of 2012, there may be as many as between 20 and 40 rigs drilling in the state of Ohio. Right now, there's 11. And the main thing that's keeping the number of rigs down is the availability of drilling rigs, because shale gas is not just something that's popular in Ohio and Pennsylvania, but in a number of areas across the country and indeed around the world. This is from a site visit I did to at a Chesapeake drilling site down in Carroll County. That's really the hotbed of all the activity. This is what the rigs look like. They're much larger than a rig you might have seen here. This is a scene view from the road, and you can just see the rig over the top of the tree line. The Utica Shale is so deep that you don't really get to see it. All right? You can go over to parts of Pennsylvania, parts of New York, Quebec, and find it exposed at the surface. But in Ohio, the only time we get to see it is when it is drilled and brought up to the surface. And this is a sample of rock core that comes from Coshocton County. And just to give you an idea what Utica looks like, it's black in color, and that's because of the organic matter within it. And it's that organic matter that converts to oil and gas. When we drill a Utica well, you drop down vertical, and about 500 feet above the Utica formation, you start slowly kicking it out to horizontal. And the key behind producing out of a shale formation is that you can drill a long horizontal or lateral bore, and then exposes, rather than, say, the formation is 250 feet thick. If you drill this out 5,000 feet or more, you can have basically 5,000 feet or more of formation exposed. And then with the combination of hydraulic fracturing as a completion, it allows natural gas to flow out of the formation. Utica activity in Ohio. Currently, there are 19 wells that have been drilled. 4 of those wells are producing. There are currently 11 wells in the process of drilling. The total number of permits that are out there that have yet to be drilled, and they won't necessarily all be drilled, is 62. This number goes up every week. If you were to look at the data for the drilling activity just 6 months ago, the number of permits would have been like 16 or 17 permits. And so this has really gone up dramatically. There's a total of 13 operators. It's really 10 because 3 of those operators are really the same company operating under different names. And the drilling is taking place in 18 counties, the drilling and permitting in 18 counties of Ohio. With the hydraulic fracturing, basically what you do is you drill the well, you run protective casing and production casing all the way out to the end of the borehole, the production casing. You cement it back, and then you run what's called a perforating gun. It actually shoots bullets through the well casing, that's the black line, through the cement, and about 30 centimeters into the formation. Once you've perforated it, you can then pump the hydraulic fracturing fluid, which is predominantly water. It's about 99% water, the fluid part, and about 1% different additives, and then a whole lot of sand. And what the sand does is when you pump up the pressure high enough to where the water under its pressure moves out into the formation, it will fracture the rock and open it up. The sand flows into those fractures, and then when the pressure is reduced, that sand stays inside the fractures and props the fractures open. And for that reason, we call the sand a proppant, because it props it open. Once it's fracked and the pressure is taken off, the frac fluid, almost immediately within the first couple days, about 20% of it will flow back. The remainder, the majority of the remainder, will flow back over the life of the well during production. So along with the natural gas, the wet gas components, you'll also get brine water, and you'll get hydraulic fracture flowback water. And that's really what hydraulic fracturing flowback water and brine water is what is being disposed of in Class 2 injection wells. This is what a frac job looks like. These used to be called hydraulic fracturing, but now that shale gas has come along, it's all called fracking. So this is what a site looks like. This is a relatively small site. It's about 2 acres in size. The reason why it's small has a lot to do, there's a lot to do with this little pipeline, which some of you may be able to see. This pipeline runs to a hydraulic fracturing or frac water containment pond, and that containment pond, which is off the picture, will supply multiple wells. This particular pad here has 2 wells on it. It's likely, this one's from Pennsylvania, it'll likely have between 6 and 8 wells when it's completed. It doesn't need as much area as some of the sites you may hear about, 5 or 6 acres in size, because it doesn't have to have room for all the water hauling trucks, which typically there's over 100 of those during a hydraulic fracturing job, so you need a lot of room to park those.